Welcome, guys. Let's talk more about qigong. All right, first questions from episode 57 from DJ. Hi, DJ. 4 days ago, Sifu Adam, if someone achieves spontaneous movement while standing for health, can that be applied for combat? Would it be the same if someone achieves spontaneous movement while only standing for combat? Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, so this when you're just standing for combat, let's say you're doing each one, you're doing Santique or you're doing post training like a tree. For most people that I've met the last 40 years in martial arts, including internal martial arts, most of them have not experienced spontaneous movement. So the second part of your question is really, really rare. I mean, in theory, sure, but I usually don't like to talk about theory. I only like to talk about stuff that I've seen or experienced. That way, I'm not talking from BS, right? So directly experienced, maybe there's somewhere in the world that have, but I haven't seen anyone that do like spontaneous movement while they're standing for combat. In terms of Xingyi, each one, and most Tai Chi people that I've met, including masters. Again, there might be people out there that are doing that, but I haven't met someone at that level yet. Whereas the first part of your question, if someone achieves spontaneous movement while standing for health, can that be applied for standing in combat? The answer is yes. Um, Most people, when they stand, they're working on a container, right? Like an advanced internal martial art, like you see in post training, whether Tai Chi or in Xingyi or Yichuan. They will set the container up like they're holding the ball, hang the string, separate the spine, hang the spine, let the blood go down, open up the body, root down into the earth. And as they get better, if they've been standing for maybe like a year, they'll start actually feeling their magnetical field rooting into the ground. If they keep standing after that, maybe a couple more years, they'll start naturally start doing bone and pore breathing. And usually at that point, their field starts to open and they can feel the space around them really well. So that's what most people think standing is, right? And that's great. Really good health benefit. You definitely get a huge energy boost, sorry. But in a more classical system that is before the communist era, like a more ancient system, like let's say one finger Zen Qigong, Heaven Mountain tradition, Wild Goose Qigong. So more ancient forms of Qigong usually have spontaneous movement. They go past the container that we just talked about. Instead, they merge up and then they start getting stuff coming down and they start having spontaneous movement. This is a very, very different spontaneous movement than what you see in modern Qigong, where it's from the inside out. The ancient way of doing spontaneous movements from the outside in. So it's a complete different paradigm. A lot of people are saying, hey, I'm doing spontaneous movement, I'm shaking. That's from the inside out. That's a more modern version of spontaneous movements. Really based on your central nervous system releasing tension. Like you're shaking, and suddenly it releases. So all your well, in the basic level is really your nerves and your muscle releasing tension. On a deeper level, if you keep practicing, that kind of spontaneous movement from the inside out is really your emotional trauma. So it's really, really good for healing, and I'm definitely not knocking it. Full respect for it. But I'm just saying there's a higher level in the ancient way, which is from the outside in. But most of the time, besides Buddhism and Hinduism, Taoists don't usually talk about it publicly because it can sound kind of woo-woo. And especially after what happened during the Cultural Revolution, when people caught practicing and talking about this were executed, Taoists tend not to like to talk about a more ancient form of spontaneous movement. But it's definitely in existence. And to my knowledge, I heard about Bagua has it, but I haven't met anyone that's actually doing it. In theory is there, but one finger Zen Shaolin Qigong and also Wild Goose Qigong and also Heaven Mountain Qigong would be some examples of Qigong system that still practice this kind of stuff. In fact, you can't really practice it. It's basically the idea that you dissolve the merge. When it comes back down, it enters and it starts moving you. There's nothing to believe or disbelieve. It happens or it doesn't happen, depending if you have the right teacher that you're lucky enough to learn it. I was very lucky. I wasn't even looking for it. I stumbled upon it, and I owe it my life because it completely healed me. So that kind of spontaneous movement, when it happens, will change your martial art, providing that you have a martial art background. Because it is standing for health, if you don't have a martial art background, it won't better your martial art. It won't suddenly teach you martial art. But if you have a martial art background, when that type of spontaneous movement happens from the outside in, it will influence every single layer of your martial art. It really surprised me because when I was learning it, I had zero intention of improving my martial art. Because for those that follow my work know, I was in martial art for, at the time, I think 30, how many years? 35 years. I overtrained to the point where I fried my central nervous system and almost died. I was sick constantly for 2 years. So, in Western and Eastern medicine, many forms could not heal me at all. That's when I started to do qigong full time, 4 to 5 hours a day, every single day. By the second year, I was completely healed, right? So when I was doing qigong intensively, I had no intention of improving my martial art because martial art was what almost killed me. But what surprised me is when I got to the spontaneous movement level from the outside in, it changed all my martial art. My martial art improved without me trying to do it. From the emotional point of view, it made me a lot calmer, made me able to read stuff a lot faster. I can feel stuff coming a lot earlier. From the intention level, it allowed me to adapt in ways I never thought of. Like it's intuitive. I don't even know how I did it, but afterwards, when I reflected, I was like, well, that was neat, right? And then also, of course, I was hitting harder and I was becoming more accurate, and I can have tactile structure a lot better. Before, I would rely on precise shapes, but after that kind of movement, I can hold pressure almost in any shape I feel like, right? So these were things that were happening to me. And had that happened like 10 years ago, if my martial arts suddenly improved, I would have threw a party and celebrate, right? But now I don't care about it because I only did it for health. And then when that kind of benefit happened and my martial art improved, I was like, well, that's nice. And most people that follow this podcast are qigong guys or people who are interested in health. And they're not my martial art audience, which is good. But when I was filming a lot for martial arts, I would get emails and YouTube comments all the time where, Adam, I do Wing Chun for 30 years. So I can't do what you do. How come your stuff looks different, but you're doing Wing Chun? Or if I'm doing Haka Fist or Xingyi or Long Fist, whatever art that I'm teaching, they usually say, hey, I come from the same art. I've been doing it for decades. I can't do what you do. I can't, no matter how hard I try, it's not the same as what you're doing. How did you do that? And I always hesitate to tell them the answer because if I tell them, oh, it comes from Qigong, and they'll be like, oh, okay. But if I get into detail, what do I mean by the word Qigong, like I am today, I'm talking a little bit deeper about it, usually they'll roll their eyes or say, this is woo-woo. So it's hard for me to answer this question honestly, because if I don't tell them the answer, I feel like I'm robbing them, right? But if I tell them the answer, they're just going to roll their eyes. And in some cases, they'll get offended. So neither way, I can't win. So during my martial art career, I never really answered that question. Like, hey, how come your stuff looks a lot different? I can't do what you do. And I'm really thinking you never will because you don't, if I tell you the answer, you're going to spit in my face anyways, right? So a long about way to tell you, yeah, you can get spontaneous movement through health standing, only if it's the ancient way of doing it, not the modern way of just sticking to the container. That locks you in to the point where that won't happen, right? Second thing, even if you're learning the ancient ways of doing it, that will happen, but it is only true if you do all 4 pillars of laying down, sitting, standing, and moving qigong. Because the moving qigong is actually quicker for you to get spontaneous movement as compared to standing. And you can inject it into it. And for the sitting part, it is the quickest way for you to feel presence, in which case during the merging process, you'll get injected into your standing. So spontaneous movement will happen a lot quicker. In my estimation, within 2 years, you can get it. But if you're only standing and not doing the sitting or the moving, I'm guessing it might take an average person 10 years to get it. So it's important that if you follow the ancient way, everything was taught in terms of a holistic practice. Laying down, standing, walking, and moving. And it's very precise. You don't just stand and hope it'll happen one day. You need to learn the actual methods. So I hope that answers that question. And we got time for one more. Okay, one more question. One more question from Carlos Rosie 4144. Hi, Carlos. Okay, that's from 5 days ago from episode 56. Adam, thanks as always for the excellent podcast. Thanks. A question, if I may. I have lower back problems for some years now, worn out discs at lumbar level, but I escaped undergoing surgery and managed to have quite a normal life until now. That's good. I practice post training, but it still hurts a little. Some days less, some days more. It looks like it's going to be a permanent thing in my life. Any suggestion? I only read from my Heaven Mountain lineage student, he died not long ago, that practicing leaning post standing could cure this kind of problem. Do you agree? Thanks for your comments. Hi, Carlos. I can't give medical advice. I am not a doctor. And even from a qigong point of view, and it's the only point of view I speak from in this podcast, I tend not to talk in terms of theory. If there's something that I can't do or experience, I don't talk about it because to me that's BS. So I only talk about things that I've already experienced or can do. This to me is really important. And because of that, what you're asking me is lower back pain because of the bulging of the disc. I've never experienced that before, so I cannot give you any advice in good conscience. What I can say is based on my experience of that kind of relationship. And to me, you cannot change the tissues of the disc in your lower back pain spine. I don't think Qigong could do that, at least to my limited knowledge. What I think it can do is reduce inflammation, and it can also decrease your pain and also increase your mobility. And the reason why I say this is because these are things I actually have seen when I taught my students with lower back pain, with this problem, and they report this over and over again. So this is very important because in the limitation of my knowledge, maybe there is someone that can cure it, right? But I'm saying I can't, and I've never heard of a Qigong guy that can. What it can do, and I've experienced this over and over, is it can reduce your pain, increase your mobility, and decrease your inflammation. And I want to talk about, let me erase that before I repeat your question. When you increase mobility, it is based on movement Qigong, very similar to Tai Chi. You can find that in many Chinatown, maybe community center, find a good Tai Chi teacher, or find a good moving Qigong set. Would definitely work the axis and also your center of gravity and your hip, and therefore your lower back and your legs, and you will get more mobility. But I want to make a heavy disclaimer here, because my grandmother in China, before she passed away, rest in peace, she had a lot of lower joint problems, and she did Tai Chi for about 15 years. And it did not help her. In fact, it hurt her knees and her hip a lot more because her teacher was, in my opinion, a really crappy Tai Chi teacher because he hurt my grandmother. Because when she showed me her stance and how she was doing, for example, brush, knee, push, both her alignment in her shoulder to her hip and her knee joints was completely wrong. And the result was she ended up hurting her knees more. And I've seen that happen with my aunt and also my mom. So what I'm telling you is, even though moving Qigong can decrease the pain of your lower back, like a lot of my students have reported, and also a lot of my teacher students have reported, it can actually severely injure you more if you get a crappy teacher. So my advice to you is please find a good teacher. And how do you do that? Because everyone's going to tell you they're the best. Is that you talk to the students in the room. If people are saying, look, I've been here 5 years, I don't feel much of a different, then you quietly go the other way, right? Or if you experimented with yourself, you join a class, after 3 months, you still feel like crap, or you feel the pain has increased, then it's time to go the other way. This is really important because a lot of time, like in the case of my grandmother, they just join because they don't know better, and they end up getting hurt more. So please pay attention to this and try to find a good, responsible teacher. Okay, and number two is you can actually decrease the pain. This part usually can come from movement, but the method I use to decrease the pain is something called one-point breathing, based on synchronizing the point in your back with certain points in your body, learning how to charge and breathe from that point spontaneously in 2 different points. That only works, and it's pretty commonly taught in acupuncture, but that only works providing you have enough juice in your post-training to make it work. You said you have a background in post-training, so maybe that will work for you. Again, if you can find a teacher that teaches that would be great. If not, if you feel like it, you can always join my program. You can cancel anytime because I teach all that stuff. Anyways, yeah, sorry that you're in pain, and hope you feel better. Okay, next. Well, actually, we're out of time. So, anyways, guys, Merry Christmas. Happy New Year's. If I don't do another episode by then. Next class. I'm writing all the stuff I want to say because I always forget. Next class, we're going to be working on the laying down qigong, which is good for people with insomnia and also people with nightmares, and also if you just want better sleep. Okay, second thing is for the features of the online training program is basically one live class a week. We rotate the class curriculum of laying down, sitting, standing, and moving qigong. It's really good for energy boost and also emotional healing. So if it's something that you're considering, we're still taking on students. You can follow links below. And also, please leave your messages below. I've been really enjoying reading them. It really helps me steer the conversation in the right place for this podcast. All right, guys. Have a good night. See you next time.